So we're back with another spot on chat with Paul Berman. Thanks for being here, Paul. Those that don't know Paul, Paul is the CEO of BirthdayPak. He's also been a mentor to me, and he has this lovely affinity for the Appalachian Trail. But you're also involved in the Entrepreneur Organization. And my understanding of that organization is one of their core values is this thirst for knowledge, thirst for learning. How has that been something you've been embracing, and how would you encourage others to do the same?
So good research there. Yes, EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, was formed a long time ago. And one of the core values is thirst for learning. It's keep upping your game. And during this pandemic, as most of us are camped out at home, for the most part, I've decided to grow a beard. So my wife and I and family are here week 4 outside Philadelphia, camped out at home, in my home office here. And one of the things I find when I get in a little funk or I'm getting a little stale, and certainly these times where we've got an awful lot of time at home, I'm not personally a big TV person. So picking up new skills, learning things. Upstairs, I have a book about Chichester, about sailing across the world. Being in the ocean would be really frightening to me, and I'm not sure I'll ever do it, but it's a book that I'm going to reread, and started it last weekend, and just, some new thoughts. And I'm a big user of Audible, more of a listener to books than reading. And it's my type A pace and personality. And whether I'm walking out at a local trail or backpacking or in front of my house on the street because we're social distancing, is listen to audiobooks. And there's some great topics out there, whether it's things personally or novels, but most of mine are business books. I also personally like a lot of the special forces. I'm fascinated by it. And I see a lot of parallels between business and the special forces. They're truly the best of the best. And things hit them, and they have to innovate and change. And there's a great book, The 30 Management Principles of the United States Marine Corps, which is a good parallel for business and Marines. A good one, Navy SEAL book, Extreme Ownership, and many others that just really help keep you sharp. And I think we all experience, things in our life, certainly as you get older, it works so well, I stopped doing it. And sometimes these books and these learnings are just reminders of the things that we stopped doing. I have found that some of these books, like I mentioned about the Chichester book and Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and a couple others I pulled off the bookshelf here behind me and dusted off, is I'm going to reread them. And I've found that through this pandemic, where business is just the worst it's ever been because there is no business, we're just kind of flatlined right now. There's nothing going on. It's really tough. Is renewed energy, focus, fresh learnings, and just getting focused on what things could be done now as the lights come on, as I say it. This pandemic begins to end and ends, and we're back to our quote normal lives, which probably will never be quite the same ever. But soon it'll be a memory, and we'll be looking back on it.
So true. Years and years ago, there's a book out called Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill. And one of the pieces of advice he gave is just what you're giving now, the importance of constantly learning. And reading is a wonderful way to do that. That there are secrets that others can share with us, whether it's, like you said, the military or sports or business or the world of economics. But there's always something we can learn. And when we stop studying and learning and instead keep our head down and, try to learn by making boo-boos, it's much more difficult and it's much more time consuming. So taking even just a few minutes a day to read, to learn. And this sounds like a tiny little thing, but in a world where we are thinking in bytes, right? We're thinking in megabytes. We're thinking in terms of sound bites. Most of us, our attention span is just a few seconds. So we read a headline. We don't read a whole book. We don't read a whole chapter. We don't listen to a whole something on audiobooks to learn something about our business. But I think it's just as important today as it was in the times of the Rockefellers and the Napoleon Hills, is we can learn from others and what they've done that is successful. So this thirst for knowledge, I hope we can inspire that in others to pick up that book, to pick up that audio book, to attend that webinar, attend that class, ask the questions just as you have done throughout your life, and of course even now as you're
Yeah,
continuing to
I would
build
say, and
BirthdayPak.
I've got that one on an Audible book, so I'll add that to my list. When we get done, I'll jot a note. There's certain books that should be must reads, and I would say Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich is one of them. My son Sam is quite an inspiration to me. He's 25. He actually read it before I did, and then I got the audio book and we spoke about it a bit. And one of the things I've always realized is that success leaves clues.
Clues.
When you're around people that are really smart, really sharp, really successful, and you peel it back and ask questions, you find some of these things. And, one of the stories I was just sitting here thinking about as you were speaking, Rebecca, is, I think it was about 4 or 5 months ago maybe, is there was a 60-minute story about Bill Gates, obviously an unbelievable individual. But his personal assistant, he was getting ready to leave on a trip for getting his week away or 2 weeks, whatever he does, where he goes in a retreat. But he had this large, heavy leather bag, and she's loading books in there, 6, 8, 10 books. And these are not thin books, and these are not simple topics. And they were asking her, and she says, well, here's the books that he's taking on this trip. And he reads them all, cover to cover. And, it's just, the Bill Gates we've known and Microsoft and what he's accomplished for getting the wealth for a moment. And you understand thirst for learning. I'm personally not aware of an individual I know or know of that does what Bill Gates does. And there's things like Get Abstract is a service. I think it's about $25 per month, which is book summaries. Audible, again, it's $15 a month. It's a book each month, and you can listen to the books a little faster. So I find that I can listen to 1.5 or 1.5 speed, so I can take a 10-hour book and get it done in 6 or 7 hours. And most of the narrators, their pace is such that you can speed it up a little bit. And it's just good juice, good energy, and good learning. And I've found times when I've gotten a bit stale and I've gotten away from it. I pay a price. And being homebound, now getting back into it, it's helped keep the juices flowing and some new ideas coming in, certainly for business.
Great advice, Paul. So, okay, those of you listening, I'm Rebecca Monet with Zorakle Profiles. We provide profiling tools for franchisors and franchise brokers that help facilitate a right fit between a franchisee and a franchisor. I forgot to mention that early on. Paul, thanks for this advice. This thirst for learning, I think, should be part of everyone's repertoire as a business owner to grow personally and to grow professionally. Success does leave clues. So if you don't already have this thirst for learning, I highly recommend it. And of course, Paul, you've been living it, as is the entrepreneur organizations that you belong to. So I hope you can come back. I'd love to have another conversation with you soon. Thanks for being here, Paul.
Thank you.